she was in my leadership, Greater Washington class. One of the EVPs at Petco, when we had power outages, I actually picked up the phone and called her and said, you know, when are we actually going to get power restored to our area? He responded to my call within 5 minutes. Now, that was because I was a member of his class and a part of leadership there in Washington. So that's the power that you have. When you go through that class, you have access to all sorts of people to get information and to get things done. So you keep hearing me talk about economic development. Behind the scenes for Ward 5, the entire Ward 5. I'm constantly in contact with people to talk about what are we doing to improve the commercial endeavors for Ward 5. Not only for over here, where we have the Costco, but all the way over to where Catholic University is, where you're seeing them build $600,000 townhouses in urban, they call urban row houses, excuse me, not townhouses. I was corrected about that 2 days ago. Sure. We live in townhouses. They are urban centers over there. Yeah. Okay. So I'm involved in many different ways and in contact with people to keep my finger on the pulse, to hopefully try to make things happen here for us in Ward 5. That's why I'm saying if you have any questions or concerns and you want to know what's going on, if I can help, please feel free to give me a call.
Okay, this one would make sure we're mindful that the symposium begin, and a motion would be appropriate on that. I make a motion, Mr. Johnson, to put our board on the record.
So in this segment, Mr. Robert Johnson will be accepted as a member on our Fort Lincoln Citizen Association board. Aye. All opposed. So this means you will be a member of the. December the 31st, we have $544.07 in our treasury. Okay, so we're down to our public safety committee.
There were no discussion, nothing coming in and nothing going out.
No, okay. No,
Thank you.
Okay, we're down to our safety committee, symposium with Mr. Mason, where is he? Peterson is the chairperson, and Ben Carter is committee member.
Board, good evening. Good to see you guys again. Good to be with you. On behalf of Lynn and myself, we just want to take this time to introduce our guests in our panel tonight. We're going to be talking about public safety here in Fort Lincoln. I just want to honor them and just say thank you for being here. Lieutenant Reed has been coming. I just spoke with her. In fact, she might have just sent me a text. I'll check that here in a second when I sit down. We have Chief Ellerby from Fire and Safety. Thank you, sir, for being here, as well as Brian Bates. Baker, I'm sorry, not David Baker, from Homeland Security and Emergency Management. So, sir, thank you also for being here. probably have you said here. And again, Lieutenant Hughes from Ward 5 will be here momentarily. So as soon as she gets here, one of the things we've asked them to talk about for this evening is just kind of how public safety impacts the things that Wilmington is concerned about as far as not only senior issues, but also some of the things that we've seen even in the news lately. We had cold snaps, so what kind of things we look for cold weather as we're going through January and winter. And then also just what kind of things specifically for our seniors as far as their buildings when it comes to evacuations or fires, things that we look at. It's also fire safety as well as emergency management. So we'll tender your comments first and then any questions that the board or the audience may have. We'll open to those as well.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to say thank you for having us here this evening. It's always a pleasure to get out with the community and discuss issues that are concerns to you, maybe even offer some explanation or to give you a deeper understanding of what is actually going on in the department. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I don't talk very loud. I want to make sure everybody can hear what we have to say. Regarding the cold weather, first of all, we know when it gets cold, people usually close their houses up a lot tighter, which can result in carbon monoxide poisoning. It can also cause problems like house fires because people use candles, may put stuff too close to their furnaces, may not change the filters on their furnaces or in the dryer. So we encourage folks to think about those things when the weather gets cold. I see that our Chief of Staff with the cap on has arrived, Lisa Taylor. And our Public Information Director has arrived, and they have handouts for you we can all follow along with at some point to share with you the progress we've made over the last 3 years, but specifically through 2013, which was what may have appeared to be a very difficult year for the Fire and Rescue Department. Now, let me assure you, though, it wasn't as difficult as it may have appeared to be, though. For the last 15 or 20 years, our fleet has not been maintained as well as it should. I'll be the first one to tell you that.
And was that due to budget constraints?
No. And just so you know, I came through leadership Greater Washington 2007. Okay? It was through a whole host of things, and I can't point to any one particular reason why the fleet wasn't maintained. It may have been because it in essence, is an out-of-sight, out-of-mind issue. All you know is when you dial 911, apparatus is rolling on the street. You don't know how it's maintained, you don't know what the budget is, and quite frankly, one of the things I said in 2011 was we're going to bring professionals in to manage in the professional areas of the department. Historically, what the department has done is promote firefighters through the ranks, and then when they get to a certain level of management, they assign them to an area that may really not be in their bailiwick. Okay, you take a deputy chief who's come up through the ranks. That person doesn't know about information technology unless they've gone to school to study that kind of stuff, in addition to being a firefighter. You take another deputy chief and put him in charge of fleet and apparatus. The person may have never turned a wrench on a vehicle in their life. Take another deputy chief and you put him in charge of communications. And the only thing they know about communications is the telephone. They may not have any idea about social media. So what we decided to do, what we said we were going to do, which scared the devil out of the department, was we're going to take those high-ranking positions and let our chief officers compete with civilians who had the expertise and training in those environments for those positions. And as it turned out, a lot of those chief officer positions ended up going to what they call civilians, people who have the education, academic background, and training in those areas. That makes people uncomfortable. A division chief may make anywhere from $120,000 to $170,000 a year. That division chief, with whatever training and education they've had coming through the ranks, has to compete with a person with an MBA or a specialty in that area. it creates some angst within the rank and file because they see the ability to get that high-ranking position and commensurate salary going to someone else. As a result, our almost 2,000 members began to create a little confusion in the media because, you know, when you have a chief officer or a manager or a leader who's trying to make that type of change, what one council member called radical change, then it's going to create some angst. And I knew that. I explained that very, very clearly to the council and to the mayor in 2011. So this is going to be ugly. But we have to do this because the return on the investment for the citizens who pay these salaries has to be something that is clear-cut, and they have to see progress. The handout that you have in front of you talks about the progress that we've made. I'm going to go through it real quick. Now, right on the front cover, one of the things you see is a brand-new international ambulance. The value of this ambulance is 3- or 4-fold. A, it's more sturdy. It's durable. If you look at the hood of that ambulance, it can be opened and a mechanic can actually work on it, which means the amount of time it takes a mechanic to work on it is going to be reduced because they don't have to tear the entire engine apart to get to, say, the air conditioner or a belt. Another thing is almost like a mobile hospital room, and you'll see a picture of the inside. And more importantly, this ambulance will probably be on the street for 5 years as opposed to the 3 years that the Fords were on the street. It causes us less grief, less headache. It's got 2 air conditioning systems in it. So if the air conditioning system is designed for the passenger compartment where the firefighters ride goes out, the clients in the back will still be taken care of. So it's a tremendous increase in our ability. It also tremendously increases our ability to provide service. If you look at yes, sir.
How much is one of these trucks?
$238,000.
And so how many of these new trucks?
30.
30?
We ordered 30 from June to December, realizing that we had 30 that came in between 2011 and June of 2013, and realized that we should be replacing ambulances every 5 years. When I came in, and we still have ambulances in the fleet from 2002. Okay? So we're supposed to replace the ambulances every 5 years, and the majority of our fleet is 2005 and 2006. When I came in the door, our fleet was already in terrible condition. I inherited a challenge, basically. And leadership grade of Washington teaches you that you don't want to go to the easy places, you want to go where the work is hard. So here we are. The bottom right corner of this front page indicates another radical change. The fire and EMS service provides medical care for Washington, D.C. For some folks, that is their only source of medical care. 80% of the work that we do is emergency medical service related. I'm going to say that again. 80% of the work that the fire and EMS department does is medically related. However, 80% of our expenditures, our non-personal and personal services, is directed to putting out fires. I heard you say you had an MBA. Return on investment, our 80% is directed in the wrong area. So what we did, despite the challenge from the city council, was we focused on hiring emergency medical technicians and paramedics. I was told by the council I wouldn't be able to do it because it required a change in the law. Actually, all it required was a change in a waiver from the D.C. Human Resources Office. Now, for 5 years, we had not hired single-role EMS providers or paramedics, which means our workforce was declining considerably. When I got here, we had a shortage of paramedics. We had the worst ambulance fleet in the region. Now I can tell you that we have hired more paramedics. We have purchased 60 ambulances in the 3 years I've been here, including the 30 from June to December of last year. So we're refurbishing our fleet. We're replenishing our resources in terms of manpower, and focusing on where our real action is. I'm going to take this real quick now. If you look at the second page, it clearly indicates what I just said to you. If you look at these columns from January 13th to December 2013, the yellow or the orange part at the bottom of that column represents our fire calls for the month. The blue part of that column represents our EMS calls for the month. So you can see where the majority of the work is being done. Go to the next page, page 3. Again, we have another graphic display of our fire calls versus our EMS calls by quarter throughout the course of the year. Out of 138,000, actually 160,000 calls, 29,000 are fire related. That doesn't mean we have those are fires. That just means somebody called for a smoke detector going off, my carbon dioxide detector's going off, there's a fire in my kitchen, in my stove, where we would expect the fire to be 9 times out of 10, or whatever. If you go to the next page, page 4, you can look at our EMS calls by day, by time of day, on any given day. Those numbers represent the number of calls during that 1 hour period. We have 39 ambulances and paramedic units on the street every day. 25 basic life support units, 14 advanced life support units. And if you look between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m., that's our peak call time. What I proposed earlier was to shift where our advanced life support resources were to make sure we could match this peak load. But now I'm happy to say that we have had a ruling by the Public Employee Relations Board that may allow us to change our shifts. Something that also is a radical change, has created great angst within our ranks. But the reality is this, ladies and gentlemen, firefighters work 96 days a year. Let me say that again. Firefighters work 96 days a year. We work a 24-hour shift, and between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. if you happen to stroll by a firehouse, say you suffer from insomnia, and at 2 a.m. you don't have anything else to do, go to the firehouse and see what's going on. It's probably the same thing that's going on in your house. We rest, which means, in essence, while they may work 24 hours a day, and they will tell you that, and I'll agree, 12 hours is all they need to work. And I'm going to go back to our focus on what we do. 80% of our work is EMS related. The medical field has gone to a lengthy 12-hour day maximum for their practitioners because they know the second half of a 24-hour period, that practitioner is not going to be as alert. And when you're delivering medications, when you're caring for people's health, you need to be as alert as possible because sometimes medications that may look the same have an absolutely opposite effect. I'm supposed to give you something to regulate your heart rate and speed it up. And it looks like in the same container something that's supposed to slow your heart down. If you get the wrong medication, trouble is on the horizon. Which is why I looked at all the research. I proposed a 12-hour shift, which is not really a radical change because from 1965 to 1987, that was the shift that the firefighters worked. We found out that we can do it. God has given us the authority to do it, and when the time comes, we take 4 shifts and compress them to 3. Now, you might ask, why would I want to do that? If I have 4 shifts worth of people, and I compress them into 3, instead of having 25% of our workforce that work every day, we'll have at least 33%, but if I get the 12-hour shift I'm looking for, 66% of our employees will be at work every day. I know that's a deviation from this, but that's important because that has been the sole source of most of my trouble with the workforce. Changing the shifts, going from 96 days a year to probably 145 days at work every year, providing a better service for the city. And my only focus, and I'm not getting anything else out of it, I'm not getting anything extra, my focus is on how we provide service in the city. I don't want a tired firefighter coming to you at 2 o'clock in the morning offering you care. I want somebody who's alert and who has at least been, hopefully, asleep at some point. Those long sleeves, is that a long sleeve shirt?
That's correct, sir. Just got off the fire ground.
Huh?
Just got off the fire ground.
Right back. I don't know how much time I have. Yes, sir. I don't want to take up all that time. We have about.
Go back just a little bit.
Aren't you new on the board? You didn't just vote you in.
So,
Yeah.
Okay? But now, how do we compare, that you replace some of the fleet, we've improved the quality of our human resources. So now, how do we compare to our richer counties like Fairfax, Montgomery, Loudoun, and Prince William County in terms of those two things? And the last thing is the response time of our firefighters and EMS. Have those now improved? Have the response time improved because of the better equipment and the better human resources?
We're going to go through this. I'm going to answer your questions. But let me say first, the presumption that we have richer neighbors may not be entirely accurate. Our economy is the best economy in the country right now here in Washington, D.C. There are cities and there are states that envy our surplus, the $400 million that we've been able to put back into our rainy day fund. So in essence, we are the richer county or city or area right now. Now, there may be areas where there's higher per capita income, but the reality is from this government, we are in much better shape financially than most other parts of the country. So I'm going to go back to this so we can answer your question, but the short answer is yes. We go to page 5. In March, we suffered a tremendous black eye in terms of the police officer being in the street, one who I visited in the hospital, who laid on the street, in my opinion, entirely too long. He waited almost 30 minutes for a transport unit. So if you look at this document, in March, we started to focus heavily on our response time. You know, there was an assumption that our employees would work as hard as they could to get there as quickly as possible, and they do, but nobody's paying attention. And for managers, what gets measured is what gets done. Right? We started measuring in March our response time. If you look at February, our response time was 5 minutes 3 seconds. Absolutely unacceptable. We want to be there in less than 5 minutes. If you look at March, the time went down to 4:28, and since we have been recording it, we have always been under that 5-minute mark. So I can answer the question, yes, our response time has gotten better. If you go to the next page, page 6. Look at our high priority calls. Look at our first arriving ambulance with high priority calls. Again, in January, February, we were 7 minutes, 49 seconds, as high as 8 minutes. But in March, when we started focusing on this again, our ambulance transport arrival time went down to 7 minutes or less. And we expect to be there at least 6 minutes and 30 seconds, 90% of the time. And when you start getting an average response time of 6 minutes, 6 minutes and 30 seconds, you are beating a national average.
Fair question on that.
Yes.
Page 5, which is first arriving EMT. If you could just talk about the difference between first arriving EMT and first arriving ambulance. I know.
Say that again, Jeff?
The difference between the first arriving EMT and the first arriving ambulance. Can you just speak to what that might look like?
The first arriving EMT could be a fire truck, an EMT on a fire truck. Ordinarily, you don't get transported on a fire truck. And then the first arriving ambulance, of course, is a transport unit. Now, under the most dire conditions or circumstances, you could be transported in a fire truck, and we prefer not to do that. We're not equipped for that, but it has happened. And some of our units have a paramedic on board. We have 21 paramedic engine companies where we have a higher caliber of EMS provider, advanced life support provider. I was on page 6, and we'll move on to page 7 to answer another question. Our ambulance, before there was a lack of warehouse accountability. The Ford ambulance that I talked about, I had to learn more about the mechanics of our apparatus myself because I wanted to clearly understand what the challenges were for our mechanics and for our foremen. But we had no policy for our out-of-service units. And if you look at page 8, you can read for yourself some of the challenges that we had with our Ford units. We'll move right on to page 9 and try to get through this. We have now better warehouse accountability. We bought the Horton units with the dual air. We have an out-of-service policy, and we have on-site replacement occasionally. If a unit goes out of service, rather than take a tow truck out there, grab the unit, and bring it back to fleet, we'll take an ambulance out there. They'll switch over right there on the spot, and then we'll take that unit back to fleet. So it puts the unit back in service a lot quicker. Now, I'm going to skip over page 10 because page 10 just explains what you'll see on page 11 and 12 and 13.